Many of us spend most of our lives searching for the environment we are meant to be in, or what we like to call our purpose in life, where we need not to worry about anything else in the world other than doing what we love to do. Unfortunately, most don't find the chance to experience such an atmosphere at all and end up passing, as in both passing away and passing time. But I would like to share with you an experience of mine where I was luckily able to be within that dreamy space everyone described, where I was passing, but I wasn't. If you didn't know, my main passion in life is dance, which is something that I want to be the best in and something I get lost in time from. Not too long ago, back in August, uh, during the last week of July, I went to a professional street dance intensive up towards LA in Burbank, California. It was a week-long dance training camp for 5 days, 6 hours a day. This meant I had to stay with my cousin in Burbank for the week. I was driving back and forth late at night and early morning each day from my house here in Mira Mesa would be pretty difficult. However, despite these challenges of independence, I committed and I went to my cousin's house to stay for the week. It was then day one of the intensive. I arrived at the studio, I checked in, I started preparing my body for the 6 hour day incoming. After everybody finished, the camp officially started. The instructors had us spread out to warm up and get ready for what we thought was going to be a very long day, but it actually ended up being too short a week in the end. They then blasted B.O.B. by Outkast, a very upbeat hip-hop song from the 2000s era of music, letting us know that things were getting real. At this point, I felt like I was in a movie, almost as if I was watching 40 young aspiring dancers, but through my own perspective. And before I knew it, the day passed. And then 2 days passed, and then 3, and then 4 and 5. Each day, we would leave the studio more happy and fulfilled compared to when we entered the studio. Even though our bodies were fatiguing, our souls were thriving. On some days, one could even describe the training as more of a spiritual push rather than a physical push, due to the relationship dance creates between music and sport, along with the healthy environment created by 40 hardworking dancers. There was just something about being in one room for 30 plus hours in 1 week with 40 other driven dancers, forming a special bond between each of us, sharing our blood, sweat, and tears on that studio floor. When we were training in that studio, time never passed. Only at the end of each day would we realize how much time had passed and how we didn't want each day to end at all. My personal dance mentor described it best. He explained that when you love what you're doing, time doesn't exist at all. If one can find what makes them forget about the existence of time completely, and they commit to it, they're set for life. Because once someone experiences an atmosphere similar to the setting I described from the dance intensive, they get addicted and they get hooked, and it becomes what they must do in life, which is a good thing. But what is it that makes this lifestyle so fulfilling? Because of daily progress. The idea that life's fullness and happiness comes from the everyday steady progress. To this day, I still look back at the experience I had, and I always find myself trying to recreate that feeling on a day-to-day basis. That feeling of being in my element and that feeling of continuous progress. And it's from this that I realize that time will always pass and there's nothing we can really do about it. It's only a matter of if you'll pass along with time or if you'll let time pass while you're moving forward in the things you love. Thank you.
That was 3 minutes and 41 seconds. For the feedback, it was really good. Your hand gestures were really good, and your tone was pretty energetic, and it sounded like you were really passionate about dance and what you do. And like, this is a comment on like your writing and your delivery, but like some of it, like when you were describing like the passing of time and like when you were counting the days, it just sounded like really professional and it sounded really good. So,
Thank you.
yeah, good job. This story is about a man when he was in school, struggled with an addiction and hurt the people close to him. He is now reminiscing about his life before deciding to seek help and attempt to reconcile for his past mistakes. It is a retelling of a fast fiction story piece titled Out of the Circle by Stephanie Perillo Burney. He always knew he'd be back. When you make as many mistakes as he did, he certainly wasn't expecting to be greeted with open arms, or even an acknowledgement that he existed. He might as well be dead, he thought often, as once he made the decision to go, he was gone, and they all treated him as such. Unreachable. He made sure of that. A disappearing act that was difficult to follow. He parked the car around the corner. At the time of his struggles, he could not even drive. It was a Ford Taurus, the same make and model his dad drove to work every morning 6 years ago. He didn't want anyone to even take note of it or realize he was on the street. The car was one of his father's only defining characteristics. He hated the car and his dad with every fiber of his being and wished he had something sportier, but he never sold it. He figured it was part of his penance for his inability to stay, his inability to commit. Plus, he could barely afford to eat and pay his bills. He did not have to worry about the money needed to feed oneself or the expenses necessary to heat his home. He most definitely did not worry about the consequences that fateful night during junior year. He'd hit rock bottom at the ripe age of 23 and wasn't really sure, even now, years later, what had been the turning point. 5 different jobs, 6 different residences in the last 3 years, and a host of change of address cards made him a certifiable mess. After finally waking up and realizing that he was destroying his own life one step at a time, he decided that it might be the right time to reach out for help. Was it the girl from his history of psychology course he thought he could love with the raven hair who shouted at him, half-dressed amidst the rumpled sheets and liquor bottles strewn across the room? Was it the old man he shared a meal with at the dump of a diner on Main Street? Was it the kid who looked at him inquisitively as he sat on the park bench eating a cheese sandwich, who said, "Hey, mister, what's wrong with you? Why do you look so sad?" He wasn't sure what the tipping point was or how he managed to climb out of the scotch and rum and vodka. But one day he found himself in a chair, surrounded by others who had the same demons plaguing them every day as well. People of all ages, with the same issues, came together every day to support each other. In that first moment, as they welcomed him into the circle, and he said his name aloud and admitted his dependency and why he was there, for the first time since he could remember, he felt less alone. 12 months after the circle, he found himself walking up the street to her address. They were high school sweethearts. They were going to share a home, whatever it would look like, because she loved him and he loved her. The brunette with big eyes and a sweet smile. The one with whom he ruined it all. He pulled his hat down a little in case anyone was outside who might recognize him. He'd done his homework and knew she still lived in the house with her lovely parents while she completed her higher education, which he had to put on hold. He was not sure with whom she shared her life now, and he didn't know if he wanted to. But he was there for a reason, and he didn't care who was there with her. It's been too long since he made promises that ended up broken. He just knew he wanted to see her, that he needed to see her, and that he needed to say the words he'd mustered up the courage to say for the last 12 months. His knees were shaking as he rang the doorbell, and yet he knew he had the courage to do it. He knew he wouldn't leave until he looked her in the eyes and was able to say he was sorry. Substance use disorders are serious issues, and they affect many children today. If you know someone suffering from this or any addiction, encourage them to seek help. Thank you.
Yeah,
Your time was 3 minutes and 50 seconds. Well, I mean, like, I like the pace. Like, your pace is was really good. And, like, just, like, the overall smoothness of the speech. Like, it was, like, easy to understand. And, like, it was just, like, very continuous, in, like, the delivery. Like, it was consistent.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also think that was also, even though a lot of content, still overall very smooth. I can tell that like there's at least like some effort put in. Kind of speech. Straight speech. Yes.
Thanks.
Not a single second of our life as human beings should be put to waste, since we never know what can happen in such a short amount of time. And this is evident in the short but remarkable life of Eazy-E, who many call the godfather of rap. Eazy-E had a hard time coming up, as he was born in Compton, California, where he spent his childhood in poverty and in an area with just such a high crime rate, where he had to drop out of 10th grade in order to sustain himself and to make money for him. So, however, though, in the mid '80s, he established his own makeshift music studio where he would eventually lead to creation of the Ruthless Records with the help of Jerry Heller, and would go on to collaborate with two local musicians who now are Dr. Dre and Ice Cube. This group would be called NWA in 1987, and this group would produce Straight Outta Compton, which would bring the rap music into the spotlight by going double platinum and selling 3 million copies. And not by like Gambito wasn't so smooth, because NWA as a group would eventually fall apart by Ice Cube leaving due to a disagreement on royalties, and also Dr. Dre would eventually leave as well because he would go unhappy. So about 6 years of the group after it established, it disbanded, and with that, 1995, EDE was unfortunately diagnosed with AIDS, and the condition was getting worse. So the disease would be the end of him. So he knew his fans were pretty young, so he wanted to put out a statement on the internet saying to his young fans, like, take this condition seriously. Don't mess around with AIDS because it's serious, it's real, and he wanted to make this the most negative thing that could happen to him something positive for his fans. He really cared about his fans because he wanted to support them as much as they supported him. So he passed away a month later due to an AIDS-induced pneumonia. His last words being, "Just remember, it's your real time and your real life." And although such a short life, he established a legacy for himself, bringing the programs of the gangster rap subgenre, and just like being the foundation of rap in general. Just like with the albums Straight Outta Compton and NWA, and bringing the attention of the struggles living in Compton and this corruption of police opened the eyes of America, and even angering like the FBI at one point, which was incredible at the time. Thank you.
Your time was 3 minutes and 15 seconds. I think I liked how natural it was, but then there's obviously different pros and cons to being very natural sounding. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I liked it, but then obviously there's advantages of sounding very natural and advantages sounding super professional. Yeah. But I liked it, how natural it sounds.
Yeah, I liked it too. And the same thing about it sounded really casual, but in a good way because it sounded like a conversation between you, the speaker, and the listeners. And it was nice. I liked it, but there was also a lot of the vocal fillers, like you know, and
And yeah.
yeah. But it was still good. I liked the story and the message at the end, which is try and be positive about bad things, even though they're not the best things that happen. Yeah, good job.
Thank you.
Have you ever been to another country? I've only visited the Philippines, but Manila specifically, because my mom's relatives live in that certain capital. I barely remember the events that happened when I first arrived in my uncle's house. Well, I did meet my cousins and my mom's 3 other brothers, and going to all these shopping malls, but I do remember realizing that he was really rich. That was the only thing that I remember, out of everything else. There was a huge staircase with very, intricate designs carved into it, and the rooms themselves were pretty large, especially the dining room where you could fit about 2 to 3 small families around the table. There are about 9 other people that lived in his household, including his children. So that's when I started to get an idea about how much more relatives I didn't realize I had to meet. When I visited my uncle's room, I was really surprised to find really huge bobbleheads of Kobe Bryant and the LA jerseys. It really looked like a shrine or a museum exhibit, honestly. But anyways, after getting over the shock of my relatives being rich, I was at the dining room staring at the table again when I was being introduced to brown rice for the first time. When I tried it, I found that it was actually really delicious compared to white rice, which I found less tastier for some reason. That was the part I really liked about the Philippines. Like, I had really tasty, authentic food, like halo halo at Jollibee, which the one I went to had a huge playground inside for small kids, which I found interesting. I guess that was more entertaining for those kids. I think that my favorite part of going to the Philippines was going to arcades, because they would have like this specific where you would trade cards you earned from the machine. They're very similar to Pokemon cards, but the ones in the Philippines specifically, I got super rare ones that only originate from the Philippines. So I would trade them with classmates in the U.S. Like, we also had Animal Kaiser in the U.S., but apparently since it's an Asian game, it originates from the Philippines, and it had like the really original cards. So the cool thing about it was that like, you and the other person next to you win cards from the machine after each match. So no matter if you win or lose, you will still like win a card as part of your collection. It was honestly my favorite part about the trip, and it was pretty addicting. After being there for a few weeks, I realized how hot it was. Like, it was like over 100 degrees. Sometimes I felt like I had a fever most of the time. And even though there's some downsides to this trip, such as the heat, I got to watch my new cousin be born, and that was really that was an emotional moment for me. That was really exciting. That yeah, the negatives never beat the positives, such as meeting my cousins and having a really great time. I haven't seen my mom's family in 8 years, but I hope I get to visit them soon after COVID is over. Thanks for listening.
3 minutes and 4 seconds. So it was really good on the timing.
That's good.
Yeah. For like feedback, I think it was pretty good. I liked the story. I like it's personal to you because it's like your family, and that's a good topic, I think. And but like for more technical stuff, like your hand gestures, I assume you were doing them, but like your camera doesn't allow you to show them very well. So and you were also doing like a lot of the vocal fillers, I think. Like, I think you, if you were reading off of your story, I think you could have trusted that a little bit more instead of like making it more conversational sounding. But it was really good. I liked it.